Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. We'll be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to another special live episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast here at the Engage Summit in Charlotte. Very happy to be here, be doing a bunch of interviews. I tried to find folks that I feel like we're doing sort of unique and different things to get a lot of different perspectives for the episodes that we're recording here. And our guest for this episode, Dan Roberts, you have a special project that is like your title at your institution. So I kind of just like grabbed my attention of just like explicitly being like, we're doing, this unique, different thing, and kind of just exploring that, because I think just somebody who's really like on the front lines of a aspect of digital transformation for an institution was definitely exciting for me to explore. So if you want to just briefly introduce yourself and your background, and then we'll talk a little bit more about your role and what you're doing and kind of what you're seeing and hearing at the event.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Dustin. Again, my name is Dan Roberts. My title that caught your attention is Special Projects Manager at San Diego Miramar College. That just essentially is a little flag that tells everyone that I'm implementing our CRM, the Element 451 platform at the college. That is my sole responsibility at the moment, and I'm very fortunate to have a team of one. He shows up every day on time, so that's good. Yeah, so I've higher ed background of 30 plus years. And it's run the gamut. I've worked in admissions and marketing. I've worked with continuing education departments, taught for the last 10 years through a CCAP program, teaching high school students college-level classes in business and marketing. So I am looking at the platform and the implementation through a marketing lens.
And like coming here, it's a great opportunity. I think obviously there's a lot of sessions just sort of like generally about AI and sort of like its impacts and kind of how institutions can incorporate it into their strategy. But I'm curious for you, like from your perspective, the special project and kind of more like the implementation, onboarding kind of pieces. What are you excited to hear about at the event, or that you've already heard about or seen at the event? Yeah. Any kind of noteworthy pieces?
It's hard not to get excited about what we're seeing here this week. First, just being around like-minded people and having the ability to connect and talk to folks about some of the challenges. And in higher education landscape today, the challenges are many. And so Miramar College is a lot like other community colleges. We have similar challenges. One of the bigger challenges I find that we all have is this challenge of noise, breaking through the noise to communicate with our primary audience, our students, right? Students are inundated with communication, notifications popping up on their phone every few minutes, and we're not just competing against other colleges, right? We're competing against the likes of TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and so forth. So being able to kind of commiserate a little bit, reassure one another that this is the challenge we're all facing, and then having a tool like Element 451 to help us sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel and start really having important conversations about being intentional around our messaging, as opposed to being having every department blast out what they want. No, we're going to personalize. We're going to talk about communications and hitting communication and hitting a message to a student at the right time with where they are in their journey, and give them the information they need to take another step toward their end goal. To me, that's one of the more exciting things, is that connection. But on top of that, it's just the innovation and the tools that have been rolled out. We are a Canvas campus, so the Canvas integration going live this week is huge. I have a lot of people waiting for me to come back so we can begin talking about how to get that integrated in the rollout of the platform. And then the next wave of agentic AI. I mean, that's probably the other challenge that I've heard a lot of commonalities with the other colleges. this idea of we're underfunded, we're understaffed, we've got 5-to-1, 10-to-1 student to administrator ratio. We've got to find a way to help our students reach their end goal, and people are putting in overtime, putting in more time than they have available, and there's just not enough time in the day. And agentic AI, this new revolution coming through from Element, I honestly think it's going to be a game saver for a lot of colleges, and I'm pumped.
Yeah, it is a lot of exciting stuff, and I appreciate too just that you noted because it's a big part of what I enjoy about coming to events like this is just like the sense of community and just sort of like you said, like-minded people. Like we're all kind of, especially just sort of in the broader higher ed space, going through similar challenges, and then you can sometimes get very tactical of like, okay, I'm trying to figure this thing out, and it could be like, oh, I just did that, and let me show you how, or whatever else. So I think it's great having spaces like this and be able to kind of get some like demonstrations of some of the new interesting stuff going on. But just like to kind of speak to what you're kind of tasked with your special project, because again, that's what sort of was like noteworthy to me is like that idea that like I guess your institution just like really kind of earnestly being like, this is something we need to do. We need to like dedicate someone's full time to it. So if you just want to kind of speak to kind of the whole project, kind of the context around it, and like I imagine that a big part of it is just kind of the change management piece, kind of like bringing people along on the journey. So if you just want to kind of give some context to the project and then speak to sort of the change management piece.
The project actually spun out of a separate project where we were looking at enrollment rates and retention rates for our career technical education programs. Specifically, what are we doing to pull students in? What are we doing to keep them there? How can we do better? And looking at the overall efforts around those things, one of the recommendations was to adopt a CRM platform. Unbeknownst to me, a separate area of the college was already looking into the idea of a CRM, and so being able to connect with those folks and talk a little bit about what I'd found through the project and through the reporting of it. They had started the process of getting the demonstrations and interviews with the various other CRM platforms, but I think the biggest factor that stood out to them with Element is that unlike other platforms, Element was solely dedicated to higher ed. That was probably the easiest decision for them to make because of the dedication to a single industry. You can't take a one-size-fits-all approach when we're talking about people's educational and career journeys, right? And so the choice for Element spun out of that committee, if you will. I think probably the collaboration between the project that I worked on and the committee's work is really what led to the idea of creating a quote-unquote special projects manager. This is a robust tool, and this is a tool when you're talking about implementing it, you're talking about implementing across several different areas, all areas really of a community college. And we touched on it earlier. Everyone's overworked. Everyone's volunteering for a variety of different committees and a variety of different areas on top of their normal day-to-day operations. So how do you ask people to do even more than they're already doing? Let's find someone who's really, both passionate and maybe a little crazy to head up implementing the platform across all the campus departments and areas. And so, for me, this is an 18-month, timeline, and we're 6 months in. This is the 7th month as we speak, and a lot of my time has really been about, first and foremost, over communication. I think change management starts with the communication piece. And maybe that's just the marketer in me, but really when you're talking about change, everyone's instant reaction to change is to fear and push back. And so communicating first and foremost, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? How does it connect with our mission as an institution? And what are the different ways in which it can connect and help with your day-to-day burdens? And Element is fantastic in so much as every single department is constantly trying to communicate with their students. I don't care if you're in financial aid, counseling, student services. We have a jet fuel pantry for basic needs on campus. Everyone's trying to cut through the noise and communicate with their students. So going on sort of a roadshow and talking to people about the power of the platform, but also understanding what their unique challenges are and how we can collaborate to use the platform to address those challenges, and really helping them understand that I'm not trying to do anything different to what you're doing, I'm trying to augment what you're doing. And so the transparency around what the platform can do and how it can help, how it can support what you're doing on the day-to-day, while also contributing to the overall vision of the college, I think that was really one of the big keys of it all. And so that first 6 months has been that sort of collaboration and building of trust between what it is I have to do and what they're doing, and to augment the work they're already doing, to take some of that administrative burden off of their plates so they can do more student-facing work. And for a lot of folks, that's the type of work that they're missing out on because of being so overworked and understaffed.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are like really important pieces there of like the change management of like because I was like thinking of just the like politicking of it all, like going around and shaking hands and like talking to people. And I think that idea too of like, I mean, you understanding kind of where they are and their challenges, what they're trying to do, and them understanding how this platform will help enable that, because then it's like, that idea of like, well, okay, now I need you to do these things for me or whatever. Like you're going to have like asks and requests and things like that, but then they're going to be, hopefully more inclined to, do that extra work and whatever when you're sort of earnestly kind of going out and kind of building the relationships and things like that.
And I think the building relationships portion is key, but I mentioned the word transparency before, but it's a broad word that has a lot of sort of underlying activities that take place with that. I think understanding and helping others understand that we also want to create sort of this culture of continuous improvement, right? Everyone, especially when it comes to change, is resistant of change because what I'm doing is working just fine. But the idea of this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to help, and then understanding that perfection's not something that we're going to achieve, but let's not let that get in the way of progress. And that's, I think, probably the other key message as I go about and talk to people and begin the work and begin those asks, which is where we are right now. There's a lot of folks working in various departments. We've created a work group, different representatives from financial aid and counseling all the way to the basic needs department have all stepped up to be a part of that work group and look at ways in which we can streamline a lot of this implementation process.
Well, that's great to hear. And just kind of like more sort of like holistically of, this type of work at this moment, it is painstaking hard work, but it is important work. If other institutions are kind of like, considering pursuing something like this, why do you think that it is especially important, like at this moment for higher education to be kind of, going through this change management, implementing a new platform like a CRM?
Well, I mean, again, I think I touched on it a little bit, but diving into it a little bit more, with my teaching background, I've been able to get in front of classrooms full of students, right? And students that are 17, 18 years old. And I think with this particular demographic, what we've seen a shift in what they can do, how they process, and how, for me, what I've seen is how they self-advocate. And the communication piece, it's so interesting to me. I can remember when I first started teaching, students were very confident, very much able to stop at the end of class, come up and speak to me. Whereas, post-pandemic, I don't see that much anymore. And I think that there's a variety of factors. I think the pandemic's definitely a big piece of that. But being able to figure out ways to grab student attention when it's already fragmented, on top of sort of a skill set that might have been not fully developed due to the pandemic, that's one of the bigger contributing factors. So if you're not looking to ways to personalize messaging to students right now, you're already behind the eight ball. You're falling behind. And we can't expect students to come out of high school and know how to operate within the college environment, because there's a lot of different steps you have to take. There's a lot of, for lack of a better word, there's a lot of bureaucracy, right? There's a lot of different windows and hurdles that you got to jump through and over. And being able to, again, meet the students where they're at is key. And I think for us in particular, and for a lot of colleges, equity demands smarter engagement, right? we have to be able to meet students where they are. And each student has their own unique journey, and we can't assume that they're all going to be in the same place. This platform allows us to do just that, right? It means, again, one-size-fits-all approach isn't going to work anymore. It's just not. So we need something like Element 451. It's going to allow us to segment our audiences and personalize the messaging and really provide them the key information they need when they need it most. And again, I already touched on it, staff burnout's real. How do we take off some of those administrative burdens? This idea of cut and paste from an Excel spreadsheet into an Outlook email, we've got to be able to work smarter as well. And so, again, Element 451 allows us to do all those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's all really compelling stuff. And I think, because it's like, again, with a lot of this stuff, it's like, acknowledging the effort that it takes to do this kind of work and, the kind of transition, change management, and all that kind of stuff. But then it's like, for all the reasons that you said, like, it's worth it, and even just sort of like getting to a place where in this sort of climate for higher ed, you're in a strong position to just maybe be more nimble, be more flexible, but then I'll just operate in a more kind of data-informed way of like, all these things that you mentioned too, like you can kind of, track things and it's just like, working smarter, not harder kind of thing. And I guess even in my mind, just like, with a lot of what you said too, just like the automation personally, like it all sort of blends together to be like more modern, more relevant, more engaging. Like, so it's like a lot can kind of blend together in whatever sort of like, level you want to do it. But like, it's just
sure. We have to really kind of position ourselves the way the Amazons and the Spotifys of the world position themselves, right? The personalization aspect, having those different choices available to students, and they expect that. They expect that with their music streaming platforms. They expect it with their shopping platforms. There's no reason why higher ed can't provide that same level of service, especially for something so important as deciding what you want to do with your life.
Yeah, and I think it is that idea of, obviously in certain ways, like higher education and everything else is very unique, and but we can still take a lot of cues and sort of inspiration from elsewhere. So as we wrap up, you want to kind of pull everything together, just sort of your final thoughts, advice for other higher ed leaders out there who are navigating this moment.
For me, two words are always something that I think in higher ed we continually have to strive toward. And I think that's acting with urgency and acting with empathy. Now more than ever in higher education, again, the landscape today is a lot different than it was even just 5 years ago. And being urgent with meeting the moment is something that I think we all need to continually strive towards. That level of urgency cuts across a lot of different areas inside a college community. So building allies, right? Building allies within the community, building allies amongst each other. That cross-department collaboration alignment is huge. That's something else that I've seen here a lot, people talking about busting through silos. And a tool like this allows it to come by so naturally. You need to have folks looking to work together to solve the problems of our students today. And again, start with that transparency piece. Don't overpromise. Set the realistic goals. And again, understand that we're not chasing perfection, we're chasing progress. Having that continuous improvement mindset. And understanding what the end goal is, what the vision is, and how our actions each day in and out, particularly implementing not just a platform like this, but overall, each department's day-to-day actions, how, again, the platform can help augment the work we're doing to get to that vision. And then the other piece is really being able to have those difficult conversations around culture. Change management is one way of saying it. Honestly, I think it's talking about culture. What do we want to see here as a campus community? What is it that we do well? What is it that we don't do well? And really, let's all put our heads together and understand if we're not, part of the solution, we're part of the problem. So what can we do to bust through the silos so that we're, again, providing the best service for students who are really just trying to navigate a whole new part of their life.
Yeah, those are wise words and great advice, and I think, just acknowledging, so much around like the culture change piece, and I think even just that idea of like, if other institutions might kind of take a page out of this book of like, okay, we need a special project manager to do our kind of thing, and that idea of like being realistic with like the time that it takes, the work that it takes, like get the right people to do that kind of thing, and but having kind of a clear line of sight on like the goals and the impact, like where you want to get to, why it's important, and how it's going to help you kind of navigate the future, of higher education. So yeah, I mean, I think this is just kind of scratching a little, curiosity itch for me of just sort of like somebody's kind of going through this process. I think I'm always speaking to kind of the change management, making acknowledgments of kind of what goes into that, as much as just sort of the new shiny kind of fun parts of things. It's all important. So I appreciate you for what you do and for hanging out for the podcast here and sharing all you did.
Thanks, Dustin. It was fun.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly in your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.